Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is and whatever part of the world you're at right now. Welcome back to my channel, Ask Nolan. And today we're going to go over an algebra lesson about factoring. And more specifically, we're going to be factoring by the use of the greatest common factor method. So, what is factoring? Factoring is basically separating a polynomial back into factors, okay? So, for example, if we had the polynomial 6a squared plus 6a, we would factor it into 6a times the group of a plus 2, where 6a would be one factor and the group a plus 2 would be another factor. Now, it's also good to know that sometimes they'll refer to the original polynomial as a product, because if we multiply factors, we end up with a product. Now, at any time when we can't factor a polynomial, we're going to refer to that polynomial as prime, okay? Now, there are different methods depending on the polynomials, but like I said, today we're going to focus on the greatest common factor method. Now, the whole gist of it is to find the greatest common factor between the coefficients and then see if the terms have variables in common and how many of those letters we can pull from each term. After that, the greatest common factor and the largest number of variables that we can take from each term go on the outside of the parentheses, and then everything else, the leftovers, what I call the leftovers, stay on the inside. And you figure the leftovers out by dividing. But let's go ahead and take a look so you all can get an idea of what it really looks like. So let's start with number 1. This is a basic one, okay? First, we're going to write out, we're looking for the GCF between 3x, or 3 times x, and 12. Now, when we factor, we have to factor the coefficients. So that's 1 times 3, and that's it. And then for 12, it's 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now, we already see that the 3 is going to be the greatest common factor here. Okay. Oops, and I highlighted the wrong number. Highlight the 3 and highlight that 3. Now, they do not have variables in common. The 3x is a variable term and the 12 is a constant. The 12 doesn't have any variables, so we're not going to have any variables as part of our GCF. However, the number that I highlighted at 3, I'm going to write that on the outside. And then on the inside of the parentheses, when we do 3 divided by 3, we end up with 1, and we still have the x there, so 1x. And then we do positive 12 divided by 3, which we already know that to be 4. So this would serve as our final answer, okay? All right, let's keep it moving. Let's take a look at number 5. Once again, we're looking for the GCF between 6 times a squared, which is 6 times a, and 27. Well, from the jump, we know we're not going to have any variables involved, right? Because there's only one term with variables. But when we factor the 6, we end up with 1 and 6 and 2 times 3. When we factor the 27, we end up with 1 times 27 and 3 times 9. Now, we can see right away that our 3's are going to be our greatest common factor. All right? And we want to circle the a's because the a's we're going to keep with the 2. Okay? And what I mean by that, well, first, let's write our greatest common factor. It's 3. Now, when we do 6 divided by 3, that's going to give us 2, but we also got to bring down those a's. So that's a squared, right? Because it was 2 of them. And then when we do 27 divided by 3, that's going to give us positive 9. So this would be our final answer for number 5. All right. Now, let's take a look at number 9. So number 9, we're trying to find the GCF between 15 times a times b and negative 30 A times B. Okay? Now, for the 15, well, for the variables, we can see right away that we can take an A from each, and we can highlight a B from each. Now we need to do our numbers. So that's going to be 1 times 15. We got to factor, and then 3 times 5. For 30, we're going to have 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. Now, we can see right away that our greatest common factor is 15. Right there. So all the things that I highlighted in green are part of our greatest common factor. We're going to write a 15, an A, and a B, because each one of the terms, we can take a 15 out of the coefficients. And for the letters, for the variables, an A and a B can come from both terms. Now, what's going to be left over? Well, our leftovers, I'm going to circle this A right there as far as part of that first term. 15 divided by 15 is 1, and then we have to keep that A, so that's 1A, minus, and now we do 30 divided by 15 is 2. And remember, the A and the B, we factored out from the 30, so our final answer is going to be 15AB times the group of 1A minus 2. All right. Let's take a look at number 14. Okay. So number 14, once again, we're doing a greatest common factor, GCF, right? A GCF for 18 times A times A times B times C and 48 or negative 48 times A times B times C times C times C. So let's take a look at the letters first. We can get an A from both. We can get a B from both. And we can get 2 C's from each. So for our letters, we're going to have A, B, and C squared as far as our greatest common factor. Now we need to figure out the numbers. It's 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. 48 is 1 times 48, 2 times 24, 3 times 16, 4 times 12, 6 times 8, and that's it. So now we need to find the greatest common factor. What's the largest number that they both share in common? Looks to be a 6, and I'll circle that. And we want to circle the leftovers, because the leftovers, or highlight them, underline them, so that A is going to stay inside the parentheses and that C is going to stay inside the parentheses. So now that we figured out our greatest common factors, we're going to write it out. For the number part of the greatest common factor, it's 6. For the letters, it's a A, a B, and 2 C's, which means C squared. Now, inside the parentheses, and I'll make my parentheses orange, inside the parentheses, we need to put the leftovers. 18 divided by 6 is 3. And we still had an A left over, so that's 3A. Minus 48 divided by 6 is 8. And that we still had a C left over. So our final answer would be positive 6AB squared times the group of 3A minus 8C. All right? And we're gonna conclude our lesson for factoring greatest common factor right here. Hopefully that helps some of you all out. I'll see y'all next time. Deuces.